The major countries of the world are attempting to undermine the elements of American unipolarity through a combination of compromises, with the economy serving as their primary weapon. As evidence of the numerous political and economic shifts and transitions taking place in the international system, come along with me today on an exciting journey through this conflict where the world's economic destiny is at stake and financial plans collide. Are you aware that the US dollar is the target for China and Saudi Arabia, starting what many refer to as a currency war? Although China is trying to expand its international partnerships and Saudi Arabia has long been an important US ally in the Middle East, it seems that Mohammed bin Salman wants a closer engagement with China as seen by their recent meetings. China evaluates Saudi Arabia's significance and aspires to a closer relationship because they desire to oppose the US dollar's hegemony globally and want the renminbi currency to have more influence in international commerce, especially in the oil industry. There has been speculation of a change, with Saudi Arabia perhaps starting to price its oil exports to China in yuan instead of only US dollars. China would benefit from new prospects and its currency would strengthen as a result of this adjustment. States with robust economies can exercise their right to self-determination and may impose their hegemony and influence. But in the context of international rivalry, the world is currently witnessing the serious and occasionally effective actions taken by major powers, like China and Russia, to impose their worldwide reputation. Washington and the Western world at large view such actions as a danger to the cornerstones of the Western-dominated international order. The World Trade Organization's foundation of total competition is not met by the level of rivalry between the main nations. This is evident in the trade argued between China and the US, as well as the sanctions imposed by the West on Russia due to its military actions in Ukraine. The sanctions are meant to cripple Russia's economy and curtail President Vladimir Putin's aspirations to establish his nation as a major player in the world economy. The currency war thereafter emerges as a prominent and crucial component within the framework of these competitions. This site recently emerged as a clear leader in a new and contemporary stage of the currency war, following Russia's decision to link its currency to gold as part of its response to the sanctions and use the ruble as a means of payment for the unfriendly states to obtain Russian gas. Russia disclosed that its gas consumers have switched to using rubles as payment. Amid these processes, the US dollar's value surged to the Russian ruble on the stock market in Moscow after a decline in the US and EU dollar's value to the Russian currency. The euro exchange rate increased from 3.24 to 85.96 rubles, while the US dollar exchange rate increased from 3.52 to 79.45 rubles. All of that reminds me of what the United States did in 2018, which was to apply customs taxes on Chinese imports to safeguard domestic businesses and close the estimated $500 billion trade gap between the two countries. The real motivation behind these actions, though, is to curtail Chinese influence, which has developed into a competition with US influence for the top spot. These measures to curtail Chinese influence have gone beyond just imposing tariffs on goods. They have evolved into a fight using currency-based weaponry. It should go without saying that the US dollar continues to be the most widely used currency, accounting for almost 88% of all foreign exchange transactions in 2019. The yuan ranks 8th with 4.3%. The majority of the world's currency reserves are held in US dollars. China and other nations that compete with the US dollar have various options to stabilize their economies, mostly by depreciating their currency so that the other currencies depreciate more than their own. Such practices have consequences as the rivalry heats up, which might alter the dynamics and averages of currency rates and have an impact on the global trading system. The factor that will cause the Arab nations to be impacted by the volatility of the global economy is this. The Arab states' currencies are mostly linked to the US dollar. One of the most important actions will probably be the Chinese government's intervention in the exchange rate against the US dollar. By purchasing $1 trillion, they are trying to maintain the US dollar's strength and the yuan's weakness in some way. This will increase the flow of Chinese goods liquidity to the international markets as a result of the decline in global markets. The central banks of both countries reached an agreement to exchange up to 50 billion yuan or 26 billion reals over 3 years. China, Saudi Arabia's largest trading partner, has been pushing the use of the yuan in dealings with significant oil and commodity exporters. A local currency swap agreement worth 50 billion yuan, $6.93 billion, or 26 billion Saudi riyals, was recently signed by the People's Bank of China and the Saudi Central Bank. This is a sign of the strengthening bilateral relations between the two banks as more Middle Eastern and emerging market nations seek to move their non-oil trade away from the dollar. This historic agreement, which marks a significant advancement in their economic relations, offers a currency swap line that permits both nations to use each other's currencies up to a predetermined limit. Put simply, Saudi Arabia obtains fixed-rate access to Chinese currency from the yuan, while China obtains fixed-rate access to Saudi reals. This arrangement is more than simply a cash transaction. It's a calculated effort to improve economic cooperation between the two nations and make commerce and investment easier by removing reliance on foreign currencies. Similar agreements have been utilized by China to build relations with other countries. It has even done so with the UK. Since these agreements allow parties to directly access each other's currencies, they lessen reliance on foreign exchange rates and, most crucially, the US dollar relative to the overall volume of commerce between China and Saudi Arabia. This makes these agreements an essential tool for promoting trade and investment. The currency exchange agreement may not seem like much, but as part of a wider geopolitical and economic framework, it represents a critical turning point in the development of economic ties between the two nations. The agreement is in line with China's larger objective of internationalizing the yuan and expanding its commercial connections as a first step toward more economic autonomy. It also shows a shift toward greater financial autonomy and less reliance. Saudi Arabia may be able to exercise more control over its currency reserves and financial flexibility as a result of this step. If China persists in pursuing the use of the renminbi for trading in oil and gas, elevating it outside of the Western financial system, it may become more resilient to some economic sanctions. In recent years, Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, and China, the world's largest energy consumer, have attempted to move their relationship beyond hydrocarbon connections by increasing cooperation in fields like technology and security. The swap agreement will help strengthen financial cooperation, expand the use of local currencies, and promote trade and investment. Its 3-year validity can be mutually extended. According to Chinese customs statistics, China purchased $65 billion worth of Saudi crude in 2022, which made up around 83% of the kingdom's entire shipments to the Asian powerhouse. Even though Russian crude prices increased in October, Saudi Arabia continued to impose supply restrictions, resulting in a 2.5% decrease in imports from Russia, which continued to be China's top oil supplier. Chinese President Xi Jinping promised Gulf Arab leaders in December of last year that Beijing would try to purchase gas and oil in yuan. However, traders claim Beijing has not yet used the currency to buy Saudi oil. Beijing is believed to have the largest currency swap network in the world, involving at least 40 countries, but it rarely discloses the details of these agreements. Instead of utilizing swap lines as a one-time, one-off measure during a financial crisis, China appears to be using them very differently. It utilizes them as a credit line, so it's regular. Argentina, which is experiencing a severe economic crisis with annual inflation above 130% and negative levels of central bank dollar reserves, activated a currency swap line with China in October for the second time in 3 years, to the tune of $6.5 billion. Do you want to know what else this financial battle between the world's economic superpowers will bring? Then click the like and subscribe buttons to remain updated on this channel. Please share your thoughts on this issue by leaving a comment below. Additionally, remember to turn on the notification bell. See you in the next video.